Okay, I'm going to run through the Q&A today. Now I'm doing it inside the garage because George is asleep in the car and it's peeing down with rain. Just quickly though, I just want to show off this rep that I got yesterday because if you've been following along with my planche journey, I done a press to a hollow back handstand, lowered down to a full planche position. Again, it's not ideal. I want to have fully straighten out those arms all the way through the movement. I want to try and get a bit more protraction and hold for as long as I can, but I was really pleased with this rep that I done yesterday. So let's jump in with the first question. I'm going to demo stuff as we go. So question on the kick-ups. So this guy's got a 30 to 50 second freestyle handstand, but inconsistency of the kick-ups. Now this is really common. A lot of people will have some long holds, but their consistency of catch is not there. So we can look at it in two different things. We can look at the window of balance. So basically how much room for error your handstand has. So how far you can move one way without falling over and how far can you move the other way without falling over. Now I've explained this before in terms of the heel pull and the toe pull working further and further away from the wall. It's a bit like that planche hollow back handstand I've done as my rep I showed a second ago. So I can go a certain distance in one direction, which would be the hollow back handstand, and I can go a certain distance in the other way, which would be the planche. So anywhere in the middle of that, I should be able to hold a handstand. So the bigger your window of balance, the easier it is going to be to catch. So you could call it the window of balance or the window of catch. So it means that I could kick up into an ugly bad position handstand and still catch. See what I've done there is I bent my arms and I was over in a funky position, but I was still balanced. So you can specifically work that and try and make it stronger and stronger and stronger and bigger and bigger and bigger. So a lot of people have a very narrow window of balance. It's like balancing on a knife edge. Ideally we want to balance on something this big. So I will be working heel pulls and toe pulls on and off the wall. And if you're stronger in the handstand, just see how far you can go in one direction and then the other direction, and just sort of play with that and explore the boundaries of your handstand. And then the other thing to look up with your kick up is the consistency of your setup. So your starting position and when you're about to kick up. So how close is your feet to your hands? Where is your shoulders placed relative to your hands? How much weight do you have in your hands? Then we have the power of the actual kick itself. The direction of the power, does it go straight up or does it go over? How much energy we use or how much power we can create from the bent leg at the bottom? How much power and energy we create from the top leg when it sweeps over? So consistency of all those things will really help to land in the same place every time. But again, the bigger of the window of balance, the more room for error, and we can play around with lots of different kick-ups, jumps and entries. And also with that one, watch what happens to your shoulder when you kick up. Does it stay in place on top of the hands or does it move a lot forward and backwards? Ideally it would want to stay quite static and we create that strong base and then just kick on top of it. Okay, next question is looking at programming. So how do you recommend programming press to handstand sessions with handstand push-up sessions while keeping normal handstand practice on a weekly basis? So I'd basically split that into 3 different sessions. So think of it as you're going to train handstand around 4 to 7 times a week. Then I recommend you do handstand push-ups twice a week and press handstands twice a week as well. So that's 4 strength sessions and 4 to 7 handstand sessions. So for the handstands, you're just looking at balance, and you could do a slightly shorter balance session before your strength sessions if you're going to combine them into one big session. So for example, Monday you could train balance followed by handstand push-ups. Tuesday you could train balance followed by press. Wednesday you could train balance by itself, so you could do a longer session just on balance, and then either repeat the process again or put a rest day in and then go with the balance, handstand push-ups, balance press, and then a balance day by itself again. If you don't have the time for that much volume, then I would just reduce. So you could concentrate on either the press or the handstand push-ups. So you could do 2 press sessions per week and 1 handstand push-up, or you could alternate that. So one week you do 2 press and 1 handstand push-up, and then the next week you do 2 handstand push-up and 1 press. Now obviously some of these are quite specific and they're quite hard to do without seeing videos and seeing exactly all your history in terms of training and where you're at with flexibility, strength, conditioning and training history. Next question is training my L-sit pike press straight arm handstand press, and I'm struggling with doing it consistently. I was able to do it a few reps for my last week's session, but recently I'm unable to complete the press. I have pretty good compression and straight arm strength already from training planche, straddle press, so I'm not sure why I struggle with this press. So what I'd do is I'd use the eccentric one as a good training method for time under tension, because most people can go slower for an eccentric press, and 2 for an assessment. So you can if you do an eccentric press, you can see the points where you can hold for time with lots of control, and normally when someone's struggling, they'll have a certain area where they'll drop or they'll move really fast and they won't be able to go slow. So then you could either train it in that way. So eccentric, you just spend as much time as you can on that point where you start to speed up. So just try and really concentrate on slowing that part down as much as possible. So more time under tension in the issue area. And or I'd put some partial range in there. So you just go to visit that area and back down again. So if I showed with the straddle press, so most people will be able to come down with control now. And then this point somewhere here, they'll go fast. So we want to spend a little bit more time on that point where you go fast. Now it might mean that you have to go back to wall or something, or you assist yourself or make it slightly easier so you can spend a little bit more time on the bit where you're speeding through it. Again, that one's really hard to assess without seeing a demo video. Okay, into the next one. So I'm struggling somewhat with a slight shoulder impingement on both sides. Which is the best way to approach this from a movement perspective, please? Now, a good general rule is if you do have pain in the body and it's not going away and it's being aggravated by the particular movement, don't do the movement, get yourself checked. Go see a physio or a specialist. But a good rule of thumb is just try and create mobility throughout the body. So often a lot of people will struggle in shoulders because they're stuck in thoracic, and when they try and lift their hands up, they can't lift their hands up above their head, so this becomes an issue. And if they open their thoracic up, suddenly they can put their arms above their head. So I would definitely concentrate on mobilizing all of the spine, especially the thoracic, shoulder area. Foam roller, yoga block, hanging is a great one. And just check the scapulars moving correctly with things like scapular push-ups, active, passive hangs. And also check general hip mobility, because if you've got like a massive anterior tilt or stuck in posterior tilt, tight hamstrings, tight hip flexors, that will definitely affect the shoulders and the upper back area. Okay, now we've got one about strength. So how do you like to add in pull-ups, rows, push-ups, all of the progression levels on rings, bar, weighted or not, etc. into your skill training? Do you keep them on a separate days or add them into the end of sessions? For example, after front lever session, add in some rows or weighted pull-ups. For quite a few years, I done balance sessions and I done bent arm sessions and straight arm sessions. So it's basically how I done my programming. So it was handstands, bent arm strength, straight arm strength. And basically for each session, so a bent arm session, I would push and pull in this direction. I would push and pull in this direction. So it would be like handstand push-ups, chin-ups, rows and push-ups. So 4 different planes of movement, 4 different exercises. For straight arm strength, planches, front levers, skin the cat. Okay, next one's about scapular. So best conditioning exercises to help you build more stable scapula during handstand, and specifically to translate into press to handstand. My biggest struggle is not collapsing in the shoulders once in the tiptoe contact portion at the bottom of the press to handstand. Now specifically for that movement, it's a lot of condition of that bottom position, but obviously for the scapula in general, what you want to be doing is general conditioning with things like hanging, active to passive hangs, scapular push-ups, and use that as part of your warm-up. Tuck handstand is a massive one to develop all of the upper traps, scapula, shoulder area. Tuck planche and planche leans, really good to make you strong in that protracted position. So specifically for the press, it would be just hanging out in that tiptoe position, so this position, and doing the wall leans, so the shoulder touches on and off the wall there, and then doing an eccentric press and keeping all the weight pushed up into the hands, up into the upper back, coming down to that tiptoe position, light toes onto the floor and holding for time is really good, because that's very different than starting in the standing position, transferring weight to the hands and pushing up, because you're from top down, so it's going to be a different loading, a different pathway for the scapula. Okay, next one. What 3 days a week workout schedule look like if focused on handstand and basic bodyweight strength? So this is the most common bodyweight way of training, is a 3-day split. And it's what I done for years and how I program a lot now as well. So I put a handstand balance or some sort of balance in on every day of the week, unless you're going to have a specific rest day. And then I would add a strength component to each one. So one day I would do legs, next day I would do bent arm strength, so chin-ups, dips, handstand push-ups, that type of thing. Then the third day I'd do handstand balance again, but with straight arm strength, so skin the cat, planches, levers. And then I either put a rest day or just continue that and go back to day 1 again. Okay, next one. If you want to improve one flexibility move, let's say forward fold for example, would you recommend practicing only this move and related exercises? Or practicing all-round lower body flexibility, also middle, front splits and pancakes? And will it have a carryover to pike flexibility? So I would have a daily practice of your flexibility for lower body that covers a little bit of everything. So you do quad, hip flexor, hamstring and hips. So something like a pigeon stretch, a quad hip flexor couch stretch, a single leg hamstring, and I'll also just do something for your thoracic upper back area. And then depending on specific goals, I'd probably put in 1 day a week where you hit pancake a little bit harder, one day a week where you hit splits, and 1 day a week where you hit bridge. Now that's where it will vary a little bit for the individual. So if pancake was a goal of yours, I would do more pancake. If it's forward fold, I would do a lot of Jefferson curl. But there's definitely a big carryover between all of those. A good example is if you want to get deeper into a forward fold, into a Jefferson curl position, if you just stretch your calves, normally that will create a big difference in your Jefferson curl and your forward fold position. Okay, and then the last one we have is I struggle with the tuck up into handstand. My head to forward when I kick, so the head maybe goes forwards when I kick. I tested to drive my hips first, but I can't. Okay, so this is a real common one. A lot of people struggle with the jumps. Normally it's they don't create a strong enough foundation, so the shoulders and the hands aren't strong enough. So we want to create a real strong base. So shoulders on top of hands, lots of weight into the hands, and then when I jump, keep the shoulders in place and stack the rest of the body on top. So most people, when they do that, they don't stack enough weight, make a strong enough base, so hands and shoulders pushed hard into the floor, shoulders directly on top of the hands, and then when they jump, they tend to jump forwards. Now what that happens is the shoulder goes back and forth and it creates instability, and the hips don't want to go on top, so it looks more like this. See how the shoulders were moving back and forth? What we want to do is create a strong foundation, so hands, shoulders push hard into the floor, and then I jump the hips on top of the shoulders. Now notice how that was the same on the way up and on the way down. Now if you struggle with these, do them either up against the wall or just do the eccentric. So kick up to handstand and then lower down through the range, and then try and repeat the path on the way back up again. Also, elevating the hands can really help if you tend to jump forwards and backwards with the shoulders, because when you elevate the hands, you have to jump more up. And we want to send the energy up, not forwards. Now my intention is to make this a regular thing, so I'm going to continue with the Q&As, so keep sending the questions in. I'm also going to put in an element of video critique, so what I might do is I might ask for certain videos on certain subjects, because it'll be too messy and I won't be able to answer everyone's video critiques at the same time. So I might do a specific one on press handstand or handstand push-up or balance. So tag me or send any video critiques and any questions, and then I'll put them together in an order that makes sense to do the videos. As you can appreciate, it's really difficult to give exact answers without assessing the individual, but hopefully that's given you some ideas of things to explore and work on, and there should hopefully be some good takeaways for everyone's training. Thumbs up and subscribe would be really appreciated and really supports the channel. I'll speak to you next time. Thanks guys.